I do want to bring in Dr. Mike McCormick with Embry Riddle Aeronautical University. And Dr. McCormick, we appreciate you taking the time to join us here on Live Now from Fox. So I did want to start with this, Dr. McCormick. Before we get into the specifics with the D.C. plane crash, we have seen a recent slew of plane crashes and near collisions. And a lot of folks might be wondering, are we in fact seeing more crashes and near collisions than in the past, or is that just perception?
That's an excellent question and an excellent point. What we're seeing now are what's known as rare events. And because are rare events and they involve aviation, they do attract a lot of public attention. However, aviation remains the safest form of transportation in the United States. It is just as safe to fly now as it was 6 months ago. And in fact, the greatest risk you take is your drive to the airport, which is 1,000 times more risky than flying on board the aircraft. So aviation is safe and remains safe.
So, when we hear about these plane crashes, we see the videos. Is it just coincidental that they are, they're happening in rapid succession, or is there some sort of connection between all of them?
We're living in a world now of social media, and all of us carry our phones with us. So now there are more video that are out on social media that relate to these events. So it's becoming common across media that we see these. That is what we're living in today. And that's why we didn't see things like this 10 years ago when aviation was still striving to reach the levels of safety we're at today.
You were saying earlier that the most dangerous part of traveling is your drive to the airport. A lot of folks, as you mentioned, have been seeing these videos. They've been hearing about these crashes and near collisions. Is it safe to fly? Should people be concerned?
I feel it's safe to fly. I am not concerned. I flew just a couple weeks ago. My son got married on Sunday, and people flew into town for the wedding. I feel very comfortable with that. And I would encourage everyone to listen to the safety of the system and to not be nervous or afraid to fly.
We were hearing from the chairwoman of the NTSB talking about more than 15,000 close proximity events. How common are these types of events, not just at Reagan, but all across the United States?
I believe these 15,000 events over several years are really not urgent safety events. Most of them, if not all of them, are going to be what's known as visual separation. And that is where air traffic control will point out traffic to two aircraft, in this case, a helicopter and an aircraft, and instruct the aircraft to maintain visual separation with the other aircraft. And that enables them to get closer than what would be the normal separation standard, which is 1.5 miles or 500 feet.
We were hearing from the chairwoman talking about banning helicopters from particular flights there into Reagan. What are the next steps that should be taken when it comes to preventing tragedies like this to happen and improving air safety overall?
As expected, the National Transportation Safety Board has done an excellent job looking at all the data, gathering the facts, and making them public in a preliminary report, along with 2 vital recommendations. But also, as expected, the Federal Aviation Administration has been doing their own internal investigation, and they have already issued what's a notice to airmen that has closed down those helicopter routes in vicinity of Washington National Airport, and now have published alternate routes that those helicopters can fly. So that's in recognition of the fact that there is inherent risk that when you're going to land runway 33 or depart runway 15 at Washington National, that there isn't enough of a buffer built into those helicopter routes to allow for aviation safety.
The NTSB right now is looking into the exact cause still of this deadly DC plane crash. When it comes to the chain of command with communication, in all of these circumstances, there's been heightened scrutiny in terms of how everything is communicated and why certain directions or instructions aren't communicated or perhaps misinterpreted. Can you walk our viewers through what that chain of communication is in order to make sure that these collisions do not occur?
One of the most important tools that an air traffic controller employs is communication. The ability to tell an aircraft exactly what to do and when to do it, and then get the readback from that aircraft to ensure they are going to comply with it, and then monitoring the actual flight of the aircraft to make sure they are complying with that instruction. So that two-way communication is vital, not only for communication with the individual aircraft, but all the aircraft on the frequency need to be able to hear what's going on, and they get what's called common situational awareness. And that's only through thorough, complete, and accurate communication that can take place.
Dr. McCormick, before we let you go, as we continue to take a look at the ongoing investigation in this particular plane crash or others, what, from your expertise, are you keeping a very close eye on? What are the questions that you would like to see answered?
As a professor in air traffic management at Embry Riddle, the things that I want to know are, one, what is the communication taking place? Two, what was the plan that the controllers had in mind, not just in the Washington National, but also in the Toronto accident? What were the previous aircraft doing? What was the previous arrivals for runway 33 at Washington National doing? What were the previous arrivals in Toronto doing? Was weather a factor into that? Was visibility a factor into any of these accidents? Those are important questions that I have, and I'm waiting answers on.
All right, Dr. McCormick, we appreciate you joining us here on this Sunday morning here on Live Now from Fox.